Jackson Pierce checked his Rolex for the third time in 5 minutes. 8:15. She was already 15 minutes late, and he had mentally drafted 3 variations of a polite exit message on his phone. At 38, with a net worth that had recently crossed the 11 billion mark, Jackson had long ago stopped waiting for anyone. His time was literally worth thousands of dollars per minute. Yet here he was, sitting alone at Boston's most exclusive restaurant, Lumiere, nursing a glass of 30-year-old Macallan and contemplating the cosmic joke that was his love life. The maitre d' approached his corner table. "Mr. Pierce, your guest has arrived." Jackson straightened his bespoke Tom Ford suit jacket. "Finally," he muttered, sliding his phone into his pocket. He stood as the maitre d' guided a woman toward his table. His first thought was that she wasn't at all what he expected. Emma Carter was neither the polished socialite nor the ambitious model-turned-entrepreneur that his well-meaning friends typically set him up with. She wore a simple navy dress that was elegant but not designer, and her chestnut hair fell in natural waves around a face that wore minimal makeup. Most striking were her eyes, deep amber that somehow managed to convey both warmth and caution. "I'm so terribly sorry I'm late," she said, slightly out of breath. "My sitter arrived late, and then there was an accident on Boylston Street and—" "Sitter?" Jackson hadn't meant to interrupt, but the word triggered an immediate red flag. Emma's smile faltered slightly. "Yes, for my daughter, Lily. She's 6. She met his gaze directly, a subtle challenge in her eyes. "Your friend Tyler didn't mention that, did he?" Jackson pulled out her chair. "No. He conveniently omitted that detail, along with a few others he suspected." Emma Carter couldn't be more than 32, with a natural beauty that required no enhancement, but she was decidedly not the usual type his business partner tried to set him up with. "I understand if that's a deal-breaker," Emma said as she sat down, smoothing her dress with a practiced gesture. "We can enjoy a pleasant dinner as new acquaintances and call it a night." Something in her straightforward approach disarmed him. Most women he dated were calculating, carefully orchestrating every interaction to impress him. Emma's candor was refreshing. "Let's start with a drink," he offered, signaling the sommelier. Emma ordered a glass of Cabernet, and as the sommelier departed, she leaned forward slightly. "So, the famous Jackson Pierce. Tyler has told me quite a bit about you." "All exaggerations, I assure you," he replied with the practiced charm that had graced countless business magazines. "Though I'm curious what exactly he said that convinced you to agree to this blind date." Emma tilted her head thoughtfully. "He said you were brilliant, driven, and terrible at relationships." Her amber eyes sparkled with amusement. "The first 2 were impressive, but it was the third quality that intrigued me." Jackson nearly choked on his scotch. "That's brutally honest. I found honesty saves time." She unfolded her napkin and placed it on her lap. "And as a single mother who runs her own business, time is a luxury I don't have much of." "And what business is that?" "I own a children's bookstore in Cambridge, the Reading Treehouse. It's small but growing." Jackson tried to mask his surprise. A bookstore owner. Tyler had really outdone himself this time. Jackson's last 3 dates had been with a tech startup founder, a hedge fund VP, and an international human rights attorney. The sommelier returned with Emma's wine, and they ordered their meals. The chef's tasting menu for him, a simple salmon dish for her. "A bookstore is an interesting choice in the digital age," Jackson remarked, genuinely curious. Emma's face lit up, revealing a passion that transformed her. "That's exactly what makes it special. In a world where children are increasingly glued to screens, the Reading Treehouse is a place where imagination still reigns supreme. We don't just sell books, we create experiences around them." As she described the Reading Nooks, weekly storytelling events, and author visits she coordinated, Jackson found himself leaning in, drawn by her enthusiasm. It was disarming to meet someone who spoke about their work with such genuine love rather than focusing on profit margins and market share. "And how did you get into the book-selling business?" he asked. Emma's expression shifted slightly, a shadow passing over her features. "That's a rather long story. The condensed version is that I was an elementary school teacher. After Lily was born and my husband left, I needed something more flexible but still connected to children and education." The blunt mention of her ex-husband caught Jackson off guard. Most of his dates carefully curated their pasts, presenting pristine narratives free of complications. "I'm sorry," he said, uncertain how to respond. "Don't be. It was 6 years ago, and honestly it was the push I needed to create something that was truly mine." She sipped her wine. "But enough about me. Tyler mentioned you're working on some revolutionary clean energy technology. For the next hour, the conversation flowed with surprising ease. Jackson found himself explaining his company's latest innovations in sustainable energy storage, a subject that typically glazed over his date's eyes within minutes. Emma asked intelligent questions that showed she'd done her homework. She wasn't an engineer, but she grasped the concepts and, more importantly, their potential impact. It's impressive that you're focusing on making this technology accessible to developing countries, she noted. Most billionaires are more concerned with space travel these days. Jackson smiled, surprised she'd caught that nuance. Energy poverty is the most pressing issue facing billions of people. Solving that problem creates more immediate human potential than colonizing Mars. Is that why you started Pierce Energy Solutions? To solve energy poverty? The question was simple, but pierced deeper than she likely intended. Jackson took a moment, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. Initially, no. I was just a cocky MIT grad who thought he could build a better battery. He paused, rarely sharing this part of his story. My focus shifted after a trip to rural India 8 years ago. I saw children studying under street lamps because they had no electricity at home. It changed my perspective on what success should look like. Emma nodded, her eyes reflecting genuine interest rather than the calculated fascination he usually encountered. That explains why you're different from what I expected. And what did you expect? The typical billionaire playboy, arrogant, self-absorbed, surrounded by yes men and models? Jackson laughed. I see Tyler painted quite the picture. He said you were all those things on the surface, she clarified with a small smile, but that underneath you were something else entirely. I think he was right. As their dessert plates were cleared, Jackson realized with a start that he'd enjoyed himself more than he had on any date in recent memory. There was something refreshingly uncomplicated about Emma, not in an intellectually simplistic way, but in her approach to life. She was present, engaged, and uninterested in impressing him. I should get home to Lily, Emma said, checking her watch. My sitter has classes tomorrow morning. Jackson signaled for the check. Of course, I'll have my driver take you home. That's not necessary. I can call a rideshare. I insist, he said, surprised by his own firmness. It's late, and Boston isn't always the safest after midnight. Emma seemed about to protest, but then nodded. Thank you. Outside, the October air had turned crisp, and Jackson noticed Emma shiver slightly in her light jacket. Without thinking, he removed his suit jacket and draped it over her shoulders. Oh, that's not... she began. It's fine, he assured her. His driver pulled up in the black Bentley, and Jackson opened the door for Emma. This was unexpectedly nice, she said, looking up at him with those amber eyes that seemed to see more than he was comfortable revealing. It was, he agreed, surprised by his own sincerity. Good night, Mr. Pierce. Jackson, he corrected. A small smile played at her lips. Good night, Jackson. As the car pulled away, Jackson stood on the sidewalk longer than necessary, watching the taillights disappear around a corner. He reached for his phone to send a message to Tyler, a thank you or perhaps a reprimand for the ambush. He wasn't sure which, when he realized Emma still had his jacket. Inside the pocket was the small velvet box containing his grandmother's ring, the one he'd planned to sell tomorrow after this final failed attempt at finding someone worth keeping it for. Jackson's hand froze mid-air, a sudden panic gripping him. That ring wasn't just any heirloom. It was the last connection to the grandmother who had raised him after his parents' death. He had carried it to each of his last 5 dates, a private ritual and test. If the evening felt right, perhaps it was a sign to keep this last piece of his past. None had passed that invisible threshold, and he'd finally decided to let it go, convert it to a charitable donation in her name instead. Now it was traveling across Boston with a woman he barely knew, a single mother with a bookstore and eyes that had somehow seen past his carefully constructed facade. Jackson pulled out his phone and dialed his driver. Frank, where are you now? Just dropping off the lady at her home in Somerville, sir. Wait for me there. I need to retrieve something from my jacket. As Frank confirmed, Jackson hailed a taxi, his mind racing. He couldn't just show up at her door demanding his jacket back. It would seem bizarre, even threatening. Yet he couldn't lose that ring. The taxi wound through Boston's narrow streets, and Jackson found himself rehearsing what he would say. For a man who regularly negotiated billion-dollar deals, the prospect of this conversation left him uncharacteristically nervous. Emma thanked Jackson's driver, slipped off the borrowed suit jacket and handed it to Frank with a polite smile. "Please return this to Mr. Pierce with my thanks." "Actually, ma'am," the driver replied, checking his phone, "Mr. Pierce is on his way here." "He asked me to wait." Emma frowned. "He's coming here now." "Yes, ma'am. Something about retrieving an item from his jacket." A flicker of irritation crossed her face. Of course, the billionaire needed his expensive jacket back immediately. Heaven forbid he be without it until morning. She'd enjoyed their dinner more than expected, but this reminded her of the fundamental differences in their worlds. "Fine," she sighed. "Please tell him I'll wait outside for 5 minutes. Then I need to relieve my sitter." Standing on the porch of her modest Victorian triple-decker, the top floor converted into her apartment, the middle rented to a quiet graduate student, and the first floor housing her elderly landlady, Emma couldn't help but feel self-conscious. Her neighborhood was charming, but decidedly middle-class, a far cry from wherever Jackson Pierce laid his head at night. 10 minutes later, another sleek black car pulled up behind the Bentley. Jackson emerged, looking oddly disheveled, his tie loosened and his normally perfect hair slightly ruffled. "Emma," he called, walking briskly up the sidewalk. "I'm sorry to intrude like this." "Your driver has your jacket," she replied, gesturing to the Bentley. "It's not the jacket." Jackson paused at the bottom of her porch steps, looking uncharacteristically uncertain. "There's something in the pocket, a family heirloom, a ring that belonged to my grandmother." Emma's eyes widened. "A ring? I never went through your pockets." I know, he said quickly. "I didn't think you had. I just need it back." Before Emma could respond, the front door opened behind her. Melissa, her college-aged babysitter, appeared with a textbook under her arm. "Sorry to interrupt, Miss Carter, but Lily woke up asking for water, and now she's asking for you." Emma nodded. "Thanks, Melissa, I'll be right in." She turned back to Jackson. "Give me a moment." She hurried inside, leaving Jackson standing awkwardly on the sidewalk. Frank approached him with the jacket, and Jackson quickly checked the inner pocket, relief flooding through him when his fingers closed around the velvet box. The front door opened again, but instead of Emma, a small figure in pink pajamas decorated with dinosaurs burst onto the porch. "Mommy, who's the man?" the child asked loudly, peering down at Jackson with curious eyes that mirrored her mother's amber hue. "Lily!" Emma appeared behind her daughter, looking embarrassed. "You're supposed to be in bed." "But I heard voices," Lily protested, clutching a well-loved stuffed elephant. "Is he your friend?" Jackson found himself smiling despite the awkwardness of the situation. "Hello, Lily. I'm Jackson. Your mum and I had dinner tonight." Lily's eyes widened. "Like a date. Mommy never goes on dates." "Okay, that's enough," Emma said firmly, placing her hands on Lily's shoulders. "Back to bed, young lady." "But—" "No buts. Say goodnight to Mr. Pierce." Lily sighed dramatically. "Good night, Mr. Pierce. Do you like dinosaurs? I have 17 dinosaur books." Jackson's smile widened. "I do like dinosaurs. 17 books is quite a collection." "I know all their names," Lily announced proudly. "Even the hard ones like Pachycephalosaurus." "That is impressive," Jackson said, genuinely amazed at the 6-year-old's pronunciation. "Bedtime, Lily," Emma insisted, gently guiding her daughter inside. "I'll be right back," she told Jackson. Left alone, Jackson absently fingered the ring box in his pocket. The unexpected glimpse into Emma's life, the modest home, the precocious daughter, the dinosaur pajamas, had caught him off guard. It was so far removed from his world of corporate boardrooms and luxury penthouses, yet somehow felt more authentic than anything he'd experienced lately. Emma returned a few minutes later, closing the door softly behind her. "I'm sorry about that," she said. "She's usually not so inquisitive with strangers. No need to apologize, she's delightful." Emma's expression softened. "She is, but I'm biased." She descended the porch steps, stopping a comfortable distance from him. "Did you find what you were looking for?" Jackson patted his pocket. "Yes, thank you. I'm sorry for the late-night intrusion." "It must be very important to you," he nodded. "It's the only thing I have left from my grandmother. She raised me after my parents died." The admission hung in the crisp autumn air between them. Emma studied his face, seeing past the billionaire facade to the man beneath. "I understand holding on to those connections," she said softly. "Lily has her father's old baseball cap. She won't part with it even though she's never been interested in baseball." An unexpected silence fell, comfortable rather than awkward, in the quiet residential street, with fallen leaves skittering across the sidewalk. The trappings of Jackson's wealth and status seemed to recede. "I should let you get back to her," he finally said. Emma nodded. "It was nice meeting you, Jackson. Truly." "Would it be all right if I called you?" The question surprised him almost as much as it seemed to surprise her. Emma hesitated. "Why?" The directness of her question caught him off guard. Most women would have eagerly accepted or coyly deflected. None had ever simply asked why. "Because I enjoyed tonight," he answered honestly, "more than I expected to." "You're not what I expected either," Emma admitted, "but I should be clear. My life revolves around Lily and my store. I don't have time for casual dating, and I'm not looking to be anyone's charity project or exotic detour into the world of single motherhood." Jackson couldn't help but smile at her bluntness. "I'm not interested in charity cases or detours. I'd just like to see you again." Emma considered him for a long moment. "I suppose that would be all right." "How's Saturday?" I work Saturdays at the store," she interrupted. "It's our busiest day." "Then I'll come to you," he suggested. "I haven't been to a bookstore in years." Emma raised an eyebrow. "The Reading Treehouse caters to children under 12, not exactly your target demographic." "I'll risk it. Besides, I should brush up on my dinosaurs if I'm going to impress Lily." A small smile played at Emma's lips. "The store closes at 6. Lily and I usually get pizza afterward." "Pizza sounds perfect." As Jackson drove back to his penthouse in downtown Boston, the ring box felt lighter in his pocket. For the first time in years, he felt something he couldn't quite name, a shifting of the carefully ordered world he'd built around himself. The following morning, Tyler sauntered into Jackson's office without knocking, a habit from their MIT days that persisted despite the corporate setting. "So?" Tyler asked, throwing himself into a chair opposite Jackson's desk. "How badly did it go?" Jackson looked up from his computer screen. "It was interesting." Tyler's eyebrows shot up. "Interesting, coming from you, that's practically a marriage proposal. You failed to mention she has a 6-year-old daughter. Would you have gone if I had?" Jackson didn't answer, which was answer enough. "Emma's different, Jack," Tyler said, suddenly serious. "She's the real deal, that's why I didn't tell you everything up front." "She owns a children's bookstore," Jackson said flatly, "which she built from nothing while raising a kid on her own." Tyler leaned forward. "When's the last time you met someone who wasn't trying to get something from you?" The question hit uncomfortably close to home. Jackson's wealth had always been both a blessing and a curse. It opened doors, but obscured intentions, making genuine connections nearly impossible to find. "I'm seeing her again on Saturday," he admitted. Tyler's face broke into a grin. "Well, I'll be damned." "At her bookstore, with her daughter, for pizza." "Even better." Tyler stood up. "Don't screw this up, Jack. Why do you care so much?" Jackson asked, genuinely curious. Tyler paused at the door. "Because underneath all this," he gestured at the opulent office, "you're still the same guy who saved my ass in thermodynamics and loaned me rent money when my scholarship check was late. You deserve someone real." After Tyler left, Jackson opened his desk drawer and placed his grandmother's ring inside. For the first time in years, he didn't feel the urge to get rid of it. Saturday arrived with unseasonable warmth, a last gasp of Indian summer before Boston surrendered to fall. Jackson parked his least ostentatious car, a modest Audi, a block from the Reading Treehouse, and walked the rest of the way feeling oddly nervous. The storefront was charming, with a large oak tree painted around the door and whimsical branches extending across the windows. Inside, the space was transformed into a child's fantasy. Bookshelves designed to look like tree trunks, reading nooks nestled in branches, and a central area made to resemble a forest clearing, complete with cushions shaped like toadstools and tree stumps. Jackson stepped inside, instantly feeling out of place in his casual designer clothes among the children and parents browsing the shelves. He spotted Emma at the counter, helping a young boy select a book. She wore jeans and a simple green sweater, her hair pulled back in a ponytail, looking completely at home in the magical space she'd created. She looked up and caught his eye, offering a small smile before returning her attention to her customer. Jackson wandered through the store, finding himself in the dinosaur section. He selected a book with a Pachycephalosaurus on the cover, remembering Lily's impressive pronunciation. "That's a good one," said a small voice beside him. Jackson turned to find Lily looking up at him, clutching a different dinosaur book to her chest. "Is it? I'm trying to learn more about dinosaurs." Lily nodded solemnly. "This one has the best pictures, but if you want facts, the blue one is better." She pointed to another book on the shelf. "Thank you for the recommendation," Jackson said, feeling an unexpected warmth at the child's earnestness. "You're quite the expert." "Mom says I'm a niche enthusiast." She pronounced the phrase carefully, clearly proud of the sophisticated terminology. "That's a very good thing to be." Emma approached, watching their interaction with curious eyes. "I see you've met our resident dinosaur consultant." "She's giving me excellent advice," Jackson replied. Lily beamed, then suddenly narrowed her eyes at him. "Are you coming for pizza with us, if that's still all right with your mom?" Lily looked to Emma, who nodded. "Yes, Mr. Pierce is joining us for pizza." "You can call me Jackson," he told Lily. "Okay, Jackson." She tested the name carefully. "Do you like pepperoni?" "I do." "Good." Lily nodded decisively. "Mom only lets us get half pepperoni because she says it's too spicy, but I think she's wrong." The neighborhood pizzeria was nothing like the upscale restaurants Jackson frequented, but the authentic Italian family establishment had something his usual haunts lacked: genuine character. Red and white checkered tablecloths, signed photos of local celebrities on the walls, and the heavenly aroma of garlic and tomato sauce created an atmosphere no five-star restaurant could replicate. "Antonio!" Lily called out as they entered, waving enthusiastically to the grey-haired man behind the counter. "Piccola Lily!" The man's face lit up. "And Emma, your usual table is waiting." Emma smiled warmly. "Thanks, Antonio. We have a guest tonight." Antonio's eyes settled on Jackson with undisguised curiosity. "A friend, eh? Welcome, welcome." Jackson found himself ushered to a corner booth that clearly was their spot, with Lily climbing in beside him rather than her mother, an arrangement that seemed to surprise Emma as much as it did him. "We come here every Saturday," Lily explained, handing him a laminated menu he didn't need. "Sometimes Wednesdays, too, if Mum has a meeting." "Board meetings," Emma clarified. "For the local business association." "Do you have board meetings?" Lily asked Jackson, swinging her legs beneath the table. "Too many," Jackson admitted. "They're not nearly as much fun as pizza night." Their half pepperoni, half vegetable pizza arrived, along with a small Caesar salad that Emma had ordered despite Lily's protests. That salad ruins pizza night. Watching Emma deftly cut Lily's slices into manageable pieces, while simultaneously wiping a smudge of sauce from her daughter's chin, Jackson was struck by their easy, affectionate routine. "So, Jackson," Emma said once they were all eating, "what do you normally do on Saturday nights when you're not crashing our pizza tradition?" There was no judgment in her tone, just genuine curiosity. Jackson considered the question, suddenly aware of how hollow his usual weekend activities would sound. "Honestly? Often work, sometimes charity events or industry functions." He took a bite of pizza to avoid elaborating on the string of forgettable dates and obligatory social appearances that frequently filled his calendar. "That sounds boring," Lily declared with a child's brutal honesty. Jackson laughed. "It is, actually." "Don't you have any hobbies?" Lily pressed, sauce dotting her chin again. "I have dinosaurs and swimming in my rock collection." "Lily," Emma admonished gently, "not everyone wants to share all their personal interests." "It's all right," Jackson assured her. "I used to build things, mechanical projects, small inventions. That's how I started my company, actually. But I haven't done anything like that in years." The realization struck him as he said it. When had he stopped doing the thing he loved most? "You should start again," Lily said matter-of-factly, reaching for her second slice. "Mom says when you stop doing what makes you happy, your soul gets grumpy." Emma nearly choked on her water. "I don't think those were my exact words." "Close enough," Lily shrugged, turning her attention back to Jackson. "Do you have kids?" The directness of the question caught him off guard. "No, I don't." "Why not?" "Lily," Emma intervened more firmly. "That's a very personal question." Jackson waved away her concern. "It's fine. The truth is, I never found the right person to have a family with." Lily considered this solemnly. "Mum says she found the right person, but he turned out to be a wrong person pretending." Emma's face flushed. "Lily Carter, that is quite enough personal conversation for one pizza night." "Sorry," Lily mumbled, though she didn't look particularly repentant. To Jackson's surprise, he found the child's forthright questions refreshing rather than uncomfortable. In his world of careful corporate speak and calculated social interactions, such directness was rare and valuable. It's really all right, he told Emma. Kids have a way of cutting through the nonsense, don't they? Something in Emma's expression softened. They do. It's exhausting and enlightening all at once. The evening continued pleasantly, with Lily dominating the conversation, sharing detailed information about her dinosaur collection, her first-grade teacher, Mrs. Wilson, and her best friend Zoe, who could do a cartwheel but couldn't whistle, which is weird because whistling is way easier than cartwheels. By the time they finished their dessert, cannoli that Antonio insisted they try, Jackson realized he'd laughed more in one evening than he had in months. There was something liberating about sitting in a simple pizzeria with tomato sauce on his $200 casual shirt, listening to a 6-year-old's perspective on the world. When they stepped outside, the temperature had dropped, and Emma pulled Lily's jacket more tightly around her. "We should get home. It's already past someone's bedtime." "I'm not tired," Lily protested, undermining her claim with a poorly concealed yawn. "I'll drive you," Jackson offered. Emma hesitated. "We usually walk. It's only a few blocks." "It's getting cold and it's late," he pointed out. "Please let me drive you." After a moment's consideration, Emma nodded. "Thank you." In the car, Lily fell asleep almost immediately, her head lolling against the seatbelt. "She's exhausted," Emma whispered. "Too much excitement today." "I hope I wasn't too much of an intrusion on your routine," Emma glanced at him. "Not at all. She clearly enjoyed having you along." "She's an amazing kid," Jackson said, meaning it. "You've done an incredible job with her." "Thank you." Emma's voice softened. "It hasn't always been easy, but she's worth every difficult moment." As they pulled up to Emma's house, Jackson noticed her stiffen slightly. Following her gaze, he spotted a sleek BMW parked across the street, a man leaning against it with his arms crossed. "Emma?" Jackson questioned, sensing her sudden tension. "It's fine," she said quickly, though her expression suggested otherwise. "It's just Lily's father." The man approached as Jackson parked, his expression darkening when he spotted the Audi. Emma sighed, unbuckling her seatbelt. "I'm sorry about this," she told Jackson. "Would you mind waiting with Lily while I speak with him? She's still asleep and I'd rather not wake her for this." "Of course," Jackson agreed, though he felt a protective instinct surge as Emma stepped out of the car to confront her ex. Through the windshield, Jackson watched their interaction. The man, tall, conventionally handsome, with an expensive haircut and designer clothes, seemed agitated, gesturing emphatically, while Emma maintained a calm, controlled posture. Though he couldn't hear their words, the body language told a clear story. The man was demanding something and Emma was refusing. After several tense minutes, the man glanced toward the car, his eyes narrowing when they met Jackson's. He said something else to Emma, who shook her head firmly before turning away. The man grabbed her arm, not violently but insistently, and Jackson was out of the car before he'd even processed the decision to move. "Is everything all right?" he asked, approaching them with measured steps. Emma gently but firmly removed her ex's hand from her arm. "Everything's fine, Jackson. David was just leaving." David sized Jackson up with the practiced assessment of someone used to judging others by their appearance and possessions. "So this is why you're not answering my calls? Trading up?" "That's enough, David," Emma said, her voice low but firm. "We can talk tomorrow when you're sober and Lily's awake." "I have every right to see my daughter," David insisted. "Not at 11 o'clock at night, you don't," Emma countered. "And not when you've clearly been drinking." David's attention shifted to Jackson. "Who are you supposed to be? The new boyfriend?" Before Jackson could respond, Emma cut in. "My personal life is no longer your concern. Please leave before you wake Lily." "Fine," David spat, pulling out his keys, "but this conversation isn't over." "You're not driving," Jackson stated firmly, stepping forward. "You've been drinking," David laughed coldly. "And who's going to stop me, you?" "No," Jackson replied calmly. "The police officer at the end of the block might, though." All three glanced down the street where, coincidentally, a police cruiser had just pulled up for a routine patrol. David hesitated, calculation replacing anger in his eyes. "I'll call a car," he muttered finally, pulling out his phone. Emma released a shaky breath once David had moved back to his BMW to wait. "I'm so sorry about that." "Don't apologize," Jackson said. "Are these visits common?" "No, he's usually more predictable. Shows up for his scheduled weekends, takes her for ice cream, then disappears for weeks." She rubbed her arms against the cold. "He must have heard about you somehow." "About me?" Emma's smile was tight. "Small neighborhood. Antonio probably mentioned I brought a man to pizza night. David has selective interest in Lily's life, but he's very interested in mine. Jackson frowned, disliking the implications. Does he ever cause problems? Nothing I can't handle, Emma assured him, though her eyes betrayed her weariness. He's not a bad person, just self-centered. Fatherhood wasn't in his life plan. A rideshare pulled up, and David got in without another word to either of them, though his glare toward Jackson spoke volumes. Let me help you get Lily inside, Jackson offered once the car had driven away. Together they managed to transfer the sleeping child from the car to her bed without fully waking her. Jackson waited in the living room while Emma tucked Lily in, taking the opportunity to observe the cozy apartment. Bookshelves lined the walls, filled not just with children's literature, but classics and contemporary fiction. Family photos, mostly of Emma and Lily, dotted the shelves, along with small mementos and crafts clearly made by a child's hands. The space was modest but warm, filled with evidence of a life well lived despite challenges. It struck Jackson how different it was from his own immaculate penthouse with its designer furniture and curated art, selected more for investment value than personal meaning. Emma returned, looking tired but composed. She didn't even wake up. Thank you for your help. It was no problem. Jackson hesitated. Are you sure you're all right? That confrontation seemed tense. Emma sank onto the sofa. David has perfect timing, as always, just when things are going well. Do you think he'll cause more problems? Probably not. His interest tends to be sporadic, a burst of parental concern followed by weeks of silence. She sighed. I've learned to roll with it for Lily's sake. Jackson sat beside her, careful to maintain a respectful distance. You shouldn't have to deal with that kind of behavior. Welcome to co-parenting with a narcissist, Emma said with a wry smile. But enough about my drama. I'm sorry it intruded on our evening. Don't apologize. Jackson paused, choosing his next words carefully. Emma, I've enjoyed tonight, all of it. I'd like to see you again, if you're open to it. Emma studied his face, searching for something. Jackson, my life is complicated, as you've just witnessed. I come with significant baggage, a child, an unpredictable ex, a business that consumes most of my time. Why would someone like you want to step into this mess? The question was brutally honest, and Jackson found himself responding in kind. Because for the first time in longer than I can remember, I feel like I'm having a real conversation with a real person. Do you know how rare that is in my world? Emma's expression softened. I hadn't considered that your life might have its own complications. Different ones, Jackson acknowledged, but no less isolating. A moment of understanding passed between them, a recognition of two people from different worlds finding unexpected common ground. I should go, Jackson said, finally standing. It's late, and you've had a difficult evening. Emma walked him to the door. Thank you for pizza, and for handling that situation with David so calmly. Thank you for sharing your Saturday tradition with me. He paused at the threshold. May I call you tomorrow? Emma nodded, a small smile playing at her lips. I'd like that. As Jackson drove home, his thoughts remained in that small apartment with its bookshelves and homemade crafts, and with the remarkable woman who had created a world of warmth and stability despite the obstacles in her path. Over the following weeks, Jackson found himself slipping into a rhythm with Emma and Lily that felt both foreign and strangely familiar. Weekday evenings might include dinner at Emma's apartment or visits to the bookstore during closing time, where Lily would enthusiastically teach him about dinosaur facts. Tonight marked 1 month since their first date, and Jackson had invited Emma to a charity gala, her first glimpse into his world. He'd been uncharacteristically nervous about asking, worried the glittering event would highlight the disparities between their lives. Are you sure about this? Emma asked as his car pulled up to the Grand Hotel entrance. She wore a simple but elegant emerald gown, borrowed from a friend, she'd admitted without embarrassment. These people are your colleagues. I don't want to embarrass you. Jackson squeezed her hand. The only thing that could embarrass me is if they think I'm not utterly proud to have you as my date. As they entered the ballroom, the immediate flurry of attention was precisely what Jackson had expected. Board members, business partners, and social climbers converged, their curiosity poorly disguised behind air kisses and handshakes. Jackson, darling, a statuesque blonde approached. We've missed you at the last few events. Vanessa. Jackson nodded politely. May I introduce Emma Carter, Emma Vanessa Reynolds, head of the Boston Children's Hospital Foundation. Vanessa's eyes swept over Emma with practiced assessment. Lovely to meet you. How did you two meet? A blind date, actually, Emma replied with an easy smile, set up by a mutual friend. How delightfully old-fashioned, Vanessa remarked. And what is it you do? I own a children's bookstore in Cambridge. Vanessa's smile remained fixed, though her eyes registered surprise. How charming. Children's literacy is so important. Before the conversation could become more awkward, Tyler appeared, clapping Jackson on the shoulder. Emma, you made it! He embraced her warmly. Has Jack been parading you around like his greatest discovery yet? Emma laughed, visibly relaxing. He's been a perfect gentleman. Boring, then, Tyler winked. Come on, I'll introduce you to the people worth knowing here. As Tyler led Emma away, Vanessa raised a perfectly groomed eyebrow. A bookstore owner. That's unexpected. She's remarkable, Jackson replied simply. I'm sure she is, Vanessa said, her tone suggesting the opposite. Just be careful, darling. Women like that, single mothers, struggling small business owners, they see men like you as solutions. Jackson felt a flash of anger. You don't know her, Vanessa. Across the room, he watched as Emma chatted with Tyler and his wife. She caught his eye and gave a small private smile that somehow conveyed both I'm fine and rescue me soon simultaneously. Later, as they danced, Emma rested her head against his shoulder. Your friends are interesting. Jackson laughed softly. Most of them aren't really friends, more like strategic alliances. Except Tyler. Except Tyler, he agreed. I think I prefer pizza night, she said softly. Jackson smiled against her hair. So do I. As the evening wore on, Jackson found himself watching Emma through the eyes of his social circle, seeing her natural grace, her genuine interest when people spoke, her quiet confidence. She didn't try to impress or pretend to be something she wasn't. You know, Emma said as they escaped to the balcony, everyone keeps asking how we met, but what they're really asking is what on earth Jackson Pierce is doing with someone like me. Does that bother you? He asked. Emma considered the question. Not for my sake, but I wonder if it bothers you or if it will eventually. What do you mean? She turned to face him. Jackson, let's be practical. You build revolutionary technology and run a multi-billion-dollar company. I sell children's books and barely make ends meet. You attend galas, I do dinosaur puppet shows. Those differences don't matter to me, Jackson insisted. They might not now, Emma acknowledged. But what about in 6 months, a year? Will you still want to sit through elementary school recitals and argue with Lily about why she can't have ice cream before dinner? The question hit him harder than expected, not because he doubted his answer, but because he realized Emma had been carrying this concern all along. Emma, he said, taking her hands, I've spent years surrounded by people who want something from me. My money, my influence, my connections. Do you know how rare it is to find someone who just wants my company? Emma's eyes searched his. I just don't want either of us to get hurt, especially not Lily. I want to be at her school play, Jackson interrupted. I want to argue about ice cream rules and learn more dinosaur names than any adult reasonably should. A small smile played at Emma's lips. You say that now. I say it because I'm falling in love with you, Jackson said, the words escaping before he could consider them. Both of you. Emma's eyes widened, and for a moment Jackson feared he'd said too much too soon. Then she reached up, cupping his face in her hands. I'm falling in love with you too, she whispered. 3 days later, Jackson sat in his office when his assistant announced, Mr. Pierce, there's a David Carter here to see you. Jackson stiffened. Emma's ex-husband had made himself scarce since their confrontation a month ago. Send him in. David entered with the confident stride of a man accustomed to getting his way. Mr. Pierce, thank you for seeing me. What can I do for you? Jackson remained seated, deliberately casual. David took the chair opposite him. I'll be direct. I want you to stop seeing Emma. Jackson raised an eyebrow. I believe that's Emma's decision, not yours. Is it? David leaned forward. Emma's an idealist. She'll convince herself this thing between you is real, and Lily will get attached, and when you inevitably move on to someone from your own world, they'll both be devastated. You seem very concerned about their well-being, Jackson observed coolly. A recent development? David's jaw tightened. I've always cared about my daughter. Just not enough to be consistently present in her life? Men like you don't marry bookstore owners from Somerville, David shot back. You'll play house for a few months, maybe a year, and then reality will set in. Jackson studied him, seeing the insecurity beneath. This isn't about their well-being. This is about your ego. You couldn't commit to them, but you can't stand the thought of someone else doing what you wouldn't. David stood abruptly. This isn't over. Actually, it is, Jackson replied. Your relationship with Emma is over. Your relationship with Lily is between you and her. My relationship with them is none of your business. After David left, Jackson sat motionless, his own words echoing. He loved them, both of them, not as a novelty or an escape, but deeply. He opened his desk drawer and removed his grandmother's ring. That evening, he drove to Somerville, his heart pounding with nervousness. When Emma opened the door, her expression was worried. "Jackson, is everything all right? Your ex-husband came to see me today," he said once they were seated. Emma's expression shifted from concern to outrage. "He what? I'm so sorry." "No, don't apologize. Actually, I should thank him. He made me realize something I've been feeling but hadn't fully acknowledged." "What's that?" Emma asked cautiously. "That I love you, Emma. You and Lily both." Emma's eyes filled with tears. "Jackson." He reached into his pocket and withdrew the velvet box. "This was my grandmother's ring. I've carried it to every important date for years, a private test. The night we met, you accidentally took it home in my jacket pocket." Emma's eyes widened as he opened the box, revealing a vintage emerald and diamond ring. "I'd planned to sell it the next day," he continued. "I'd decided no one would ever pass that invisible threshold, and then I met you." "I'm not proposing," he clarified. "Not yet. That would be too soon for all of us, especially Lily, but I am asking if you'll consider a future where that might be possible." Emma's tears spilled over. "You really mean this, don't you? Your life has substance, Emma. Real connections, real purpose. You've shown me what matters." Emma leaned forward, pressing her forehead to his. "I love you too. And yes, I can see that future." Jackson placed the ring box in her hand. "Then keep this. Not as an engagement ring, not yet, but as a promise." "Mom, Jackson, why are you crying?" Lily stood in her dinosaur pajamas, clutching her stuffed elephant. "Happy tears, sweetheart," Emma explained. "Sometimes adults cry when they're happy." Lily padded over. "Are you going to be around more now?" she asked Jackson directly. "I'd like to be, if that's okay with you." Lily considered this solemnly. "Do you know how to make pancakes? Mom burns them." Emma laughed through her tears. "I do not." "You do too," Lily insisted. Jackson grinned. "I can learn to make pancakes." "Good," Lily nodded decisively. "Then you can stay." 6 months later, Jackson stood in the expanded Reading treehouse, where his investment had allowed for a cafe and additional space. Emma joined him, sliding an arm around his waist. "The contractor says we can move in next week." Jackson looked out toward the Victorian across the street, the one they'd purchased together, renovating into a single-family home. "More than ready," he assured her. "Though I still think Lily's suggestion to build an actual treehouse was better than my home office idea." "We're doing both, remember?" Emma laughed. Behind them, Lily conducted a dinosaur tour for younger children, her confidence blossoming with the stability of her expanding family. That night, after tucking Lily into bed, Jackson and Emma stood in the yard of the apartment they'd soon leave. "Are you sure you don't miss your penthouse?" Emma asked. "The view, the luxury." Jackson tightened his arm around her. "Not for a second." And as he kissed her under the same sky that had witnessed their first meeting, Jackson felt the weight of his grandmother's ring in his pocket. The time was right. Their future was clear. And tomorrow, with Lily's enthusiastic blessing already secured during a secret dinosaur-themed planning session, he would finally ask the question that had been waiting since that first blind date, when a single mum had changed everything.